Good afternoon. We're going to call the meeting to order. The second item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Sauger, allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3 is adoption of the agenda. Moved by Commissioner Carabelli, supported by Commissioner Drolet. Please vote on your iPads. Good. The agenda is adopted. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes for the May 9th, 2018 meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Carabelli, supported by Duge. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, please vote on your iPads. Item number 5. Oops, oh wait, 1 second. Are we good? The minutes are unanimously adopted. Item number 5 is public participation. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the Justice and Public Safety Committee? Seeing none, we'll close public participation and move to item number 6, which is presentations. Item number 6A is the update on the jail beds. And I think Chair Smith, you wanted to discuss this?
Thank you, Chair. Unless anyone from the Sheriff Department wants to talk.
You can answer questions for you.
Well, actually, no, we're fine, I think, right now. And if there's any questions, maybe we'll ask you afterwards. So the Sheriff Department came to us after we had some initial conversation about the jail bed and the repairs and the costs and such. So we were all at that meeting, but I hadn't heard anything since then. So I reached out to Mark Delden. I think you all, did you all receive the email? So I just want to talk just for a second about it. And I talked with Sheriff Wickersham yesterday before he got on his plane. And really, I just want to talk about Mark Delden's response and just read it. Per my communication yesterday, there's nothing new to report on the project for the following reasons. The original jail bed replacement bids that were brought forward to the BOC were tabled because they were not comfortable with the price and or the recommended solution. Since the time, the bids have expired. Now, I find that they don't expire, but the pricing no longer is solid after that. So, I mean, the bid's still there, but they could change their price if they wanted to. Number 2, Commissioner Carabelli provided the names of some engineering firms that could potentially provide a less costly solution. And it was his understanding that one firm had come in at $595,000, which is significantly less, but they are talking now about the problem maybe with that being a sole source for that type of money. So they might be looking at putting out either another bid process or more of a design build type of process. Like, so if this person figured this would work, the last people figured that would work, maybe there's 3 other ideas out there that might even be better. So it looks like that's where it's going right now. And I talked to the sheriff. He has no issue with this. He said I could, reiterate our conversation that he's fine with this. Obviously there's some issues with the price, and maybe we needed to, reach out a little farther to find a better solution. So that being said, unless Commissioner Carabelli wants to introduce or interject anything to it, I just wanted to get that out, that is the reason that this is still in the works. Anything else? Any other questions or?
So just if I could just be real clear. So the item initially came to us. It didn't come to this committee, but it went to a different committee with a proposed contract. That was tabled. In the interim, Commissioner Carabelli came up with a different solution. That came before us, and we were told that we were going to get another resolution or a request. We haven't received that. So at this point, the sheriff's not asking us to take any action on that item. Is that your understanding of?
That's my understanding. Jim, you have something on that you talked to?
Yeah, just a little bit more information that in the meantime of them, F&O working with the sheriff's office, the 120-day had passed on the bids that they had received prior to. So either way, they have to go out for proposal. Executive's office concerned it was a sole source, and it wasn't competitively bid, and I agree. That's a lot of money to give to one company, even though we're saving a ton of money, still, right is right, wrong is wrong. So they're going back to take a look at it that way. I believe they're gonna go out and drop a new RFP with the type of recommendation that these engineers came up with and see what's best for the county. I guess what we do have to do is probably take that tabled item off the table and kill it, or deny it. But we can talk, I don't know the right, we should probably take it out because they're gonna come back with something new anyways. So that item really isn't, right.
Go ahead.
I agree with that, but I do want to just, I do want to check just to make sure the proper procedure on that, and I think that we can untable it at any meeting and then vote it down, just so it actually, gets rid of that item and it's out, it's not lingering, and then the new RFP or proposal or whatever we're going to get, whether it's for the same or something different, will be on its own.
Okay, but I guess my question then is the sheriff's office asking us to consider the item that we previously tabled, or are they pulling that item? Because I don't want a situation that
Well-
there is a problem and then it falls on the board's lap that we haven't done what we should be doing in addressing these issues.
That was not part of my conversation yesterday. He did not he did not ask us to act on that item. He understands that there's a significant savings to be had, and that even the solution that was proposed was going to be a long-term process to actually accomplish. So that being said, the newest proposal, I think, cut that time by a considerable amount. So I mean, we're not looking at the end being much different. So he did not ask me to act on that item. He said he understood why, and I don't know that we can even act on that item because technically the bids have expired. We can't hold them to their price.
Okay.
All right?
If you could follow up on that, Chair, because I don't want a situation where it appears that we've delayed on something. If we need to have an emergency meeting or a second meeting, I'm happy to do that.
Right. And that's fine. And that is one of the reasons I wanted to point out what was happening in this process.
Madam Chair, point of information, since we do have a representative from the Sheriff's Office here, I would just like concurrence that what was discussed here is the same thing that he is aware of.
Yes, and I'll relay the information to the sheriff. He is out of town right now to make sure that he's aware of what the board's position is on the bid and the position that we're going to make sure that the board's not neglecting any moving forward on our request. So I'll make sure that we're all on the same page.
On that note, I did have a conversation with them yesterday about this whole thing.
Okay.
So, but I would appreciate you reiterating this conversation. That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll get back to the chair.
Any other discussion on Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I asked this question at the last meeting. I asked them when Commissioner Carabelli came up with this idea, they brought in that screw and showed us. And I had asked, I said, is there any other, contractors, anybody else out there that can produce this item? And at that time, we were told no, it was kind of a custom job. So obviously, the executive is concerned, and that's okay. That's good. I was concerned back then that, why are we just going with this one company? But I think Commissioner Carabelli's solution is what should be done. I think that's what the executive is looking to do, is redesign the bolt or find another potential company that can produce this bolt at a much cheaper price. Is that what we're looking at here?
I'll tell you that I had spoke with Lynn from F&O, and I believe it would either be that they would put that out as a solution and bid on this type of a solution, or possibly, and we were just discussing this, so this isn't in stone, but maybe even a design build type of a RFP, which means that there might be 3 or 4 other completely different solutions that no one's thought of yet. So you get a design and a price, and they come in, and then they would pick what they felt was the best solution, overall. So I think those are just 2 of the options.
Okay.
And I think those are 2 of the more likely options that would happen.
Okay, and that would likely, along with what what Madam Chair is saying, that can be done in a relatively quick time, because, I know that if we did the original program, it was going to take a year to get all those beds in there. Commissioner Carabelli's idea was astounding, but I understand it's not fair to just go with one company. We want to take a look around and see what other options we have. But any idea on when we're going to get back on if it's going to be a, a different bid, or if it's going to be a design thing? Any idea on how long the process is going to be?
Commissioner Leonetti, the conversations are being had, and I believe that, they know the importance of this also and the situation that we're in right now. So I can imagine only that they're working on it as fast as they can work on it.
Okay.
And I'll reiterate the fact that it wasn't Commissioner Carabelli's idea for him, that he knew that there might be a better solution, and they reached out and found a couple companies, and one had at least a seemingly better solution. I know
Okay.
he doesn't want to take credit for their solution. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Kleinfeld, did you remove your name from the list?
No, I know. Commissioner Duge did. He was logged in as me, and I was logged in as him.
So you don't wish to speak?
No, I never did, but that's been corrected.
Commissioner Duge?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we having new engineering drawings put up for this? Are we starting from the beginning, or are we using some of the old drawings, or what's going on with all this?
Commissioner, I think we just spoke to that we're in a position right now where there's nothing, I'm not sure which
So there's-
way they're going to go, if they're going to go with what's been newly recommended, or if they're going to even look further to see if there is, and not engineer it from ourselves, but possibly let a firm engineer their own idea on what it might be. So that's where we're at. There's nothing in the works right now that I know of either way.
The reason I'm asking is you can't get an RFQ together if you don't know what you want people to quote.
Well, there are construction RFQs, RFPs that say design and build. Here's our problem, design
Are
around
we
it and
doing
build.
design and
that's-
build on this now, or?
I have not seen an RFP that's been created in that manner. I know the original RFP went out. We have not looked at doing a different RFP for the bed, bolted I'm aware of.
Right. And I'm not saying that they're doing that. I'm saying that was part of the conversation, that that's a
I just want to make sure
possibility.
that we're saving a significant amount of money, kudos, but I want to make sure that we're doing, all the Ts are crossed, Is are dotted, and so on and so forth.
And our side of
And
things
that
is what
this
we've
is
been
a
doing.
fair bid going forward.
Commissioner,
it.
that's exactly where they're at right now, and that's why we have a purchasing department, and they're gonna take care of all that the way that they normally would based on these circumstances. So I don't have any doubt that it'll be fair and
These are kind of
just.
bizarre circumstances, but let's see where they get to. And this will come back to us after everything is said and done anyway, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't have any other speakers on the list. Am I missing anybody? Is there a motion to receive and file? Moved by Carabelli, supported by Drollet. Please vote on your iPad. Is there a unanimous vote? There's a unanimous vote on that. Item number 7, department recommendations. 7A is a budget amendment, the Emergency Management Fund 350 Federal Grant Award. We have Vicki Wolber, the Director of the Emergency Management and Communications.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. You have before you a budget amendment request for approximately $4.5 million. This is for our federal grants that we receive as fiduciary for the Southeast Michigan region, and this is pretty much a standard request that we make every year once we start to process the grant agreement and interlocal agreements with our partner jurisdictions. If you have any questions, take them.
Any discussion? Can you get me to my spot real quick? Just trying to get to my spot. Current. I don't have any speakers on the list. Is there a motion? Moved by Kleinfeld, support by Duge. Please vote on your iPads. Unanimous? The item unanimously passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Item 7B is a budget amendment from the Sheriff's Office, the fund position, a part-time department EMS liaison. We have Captain Dave Daniels from the Sheriff's Department.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Sheriff is requesting to add a Fire Department Emergency Medical Services Liaison position to his budget. The position will be part-time and will need to be staffed for no more than 20 hours per week. This position has morphed into a critical position in our dispatch center. It helps to serve the commitment that we have with the fire services in Macomb County. We've seen an increase with the request of dispatch services from the sheriff's office, not only from law enforcement dispatch, but also from the fire side. Fire dispatching is completely separately different from law enforcement dispatching, and it's a different set of skills. So with that being said, the training and the efficiency of fire dispatching allows us to, we realize now that we need subject matter experts to train our people to be good fire dispatchers. That position, that task was being done by the emergency management program manager that was staffed in Vicky's office in Office of Emergency Management. This position has become important to the sheriff's office now because this individual is retiring, and that task is no longer going to be completed by anyone that's in the sheriff's office right now currently. That's why the sheriff's office is requesting this part-time position be created and to be granted so we can move forward with the essential functions of the job of allowing fire dispatch and the training of our people to be capable of getting the dispatching done that needs to be done in the county. With that, I have any questions.
I have a list. Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that explanation. Just for interest of clarity, you mentioned that fire dispatch is substantially different or completely different than law enforcement dispatch.
Yes, sir.
Does that mean there's different people that do it, or the same people that just require additional level of training?
It's the latter of the two. In a
Okay.
perfect world, we'd like to have specifically fire dispatch trained, but we don't have that luxury of that many personnel. But yes, our dispatchers are cross-trained with fire and EMS and law enforcement.
Okay, and I know that the Sheriff's Department provides dispatch services to a number of communities that have contracted. Does that include fire, or do those communities do something else for dispatch for fire?
We have 17 communities we provide, or 17 agencies we provide dispatch services for. Some of the areas that we provide dispatch services for are not contracted areas with the sheriff's office, if that's your question.
No, it was that those that do contract or that you provide the service for, you provide both police and fire dispatch for those communities.
Not everyone, not currently.
So there are some that you provide.
Just LE, just law enforcement. I don't mean to cut you off, sir. Yeah, for the agencies that we do provide law enforcement services for, we do not provide fire dispatch services for every agency we provide law enforcement service for currently.
Okay. So some communities have a different source for their fire dispatch than they do for their
They do. They
law
dispatch
enforcement.
themselves. They self-dispatch.
I see. Okay. And then just a final question, and thanks for those clarifications. I noticed from the material this is funded through 911 fees. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
Yes, sir.
So are these extra 911 fees that we've come across, or are these, what would have those 911 fees gone toward if this didn't happen?
Sure. So 911 fees, the E911 fees are, because we're a public safety answering point, we're a PSAP, we receive E911 funding from the state for this emergency phone calls that we take in as our PSAP. Historically, since the last 3 years, we've received around $600,000 annually. We have different things that we pay for out of the E911's funding. Those are allowable expenses, but they are, from the state, they're mandated. You only can spend that on certain things. So the allowable expense of us to maybe perhaps pay for a dispatch supervisor, which we have done, or pay for this position is appropriate. It was also appropriate to share those funds with the emergency manager prior to, because he was doing that job for us. So, but to answer your question, the sheriff's office usually finds a way to expend those funds. It's usually, I wouldn't say a complete pass-through, but whatever we get initially from the 911 surcharge, it's passed through, and we end up spending the money throughout the calendar year.
So you would have used it on other stuff essentially, and now you're moving that to this particular use.
We've been paying for this position for a while in the same manner. What we've been contributing to emergency management's budget, because he's been doing these tasks for the last couple of years.
So essentially, this is just kind of moving from the emergency financial budget to the sheriff's department budget.
Yes, sir.
And the money's sort of moving along with it.
That's it.
Okay.
That is it.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Drollet. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. The individual that is retiring, that is doing the job right now, is there any consideration or thought that that person is going to be doing this job in the future?
We're gonna post the job through HR, and it's gonna be posted for 10 days. Whether he's gonna be a candidate or not, he'll definitely be looked at. We would absolutely take a look at any of the candidates that come across once we post a job with HR.
Okay. I asked for a couple of reasons. I don't know what that individual's pay is right now, but I was pretty shocked that we're looking at like $39 an hour before, FICA, and that seems awfully high to me. If it were full-time without the benefits, we're looking at $80,000. I'm a little shocked at how high it is. Where did you arrive at that number?
We arrived at that number, and it's a good question. We arrived at that number based on the amount of money that the sheriff's office was contributing to Office of Emergency Management for that position, that the position from the program manager from Emergency Management that we were paying for. So we split that in half, and that's where we came up with that figure.
So you're using somebody who's already so senior that they're getting ready to retire and is already in a high position within that department to come up with the wages for this position we're going to post as a part-time position.
He's already retired or getting ready to retire.
Either one. In setting the wage for this position, you took the wages of the individual that is doing the job right now, an
Right.
individual that's at retirement age, so he's already in a position where he's gone up, and it's an unusual position, and
Yes.
and I'm just
Yes.
so you went with what you're paying an individual out of her department that had a different title
Right,
to set the wage for this.
yes. Because he was essentially, he's doing the same job. He was getting paid to do the same job he's gonna come to do at our place.
So you are expecting that he will probably be in front of us. And that's how you set the wages. If he's retired, why don't you post it at a lower rate? I mean, and see what you get. That's awfully high.
Okay. I don't think the sheriff would object to that at all, one bit. I mean, we ran it by finance. Finance took a look at the numbers. We were happy with the wage that it was, the way it was presented. It's the first time that we have a question on the finance on how much the wage. being
Okay,
set.
the last question with respect to that is if we're talking about part-time, is this something that we can contract with a company where we're not paying those benefits?
The benefits for, I believe that, and HR could probably answer this better than I can, but as part-time positions, there's mandatory things that we have to pay for, FICA, unemployment, and I don't know of any agency that would provide this service under a contract.
Okay.
that
Well,
would
no,
then
I'm
do
not
that.
saying agency, because I know a whole lot of retired people in government that create their own LLCs and turn around and do the
Right.
same thing.
Okay.
And they don't, and the government agency almost always doesn't pay as much because they're now earning a full pension. So they're happy to do it for a few years at a lower rate
Right.
because they've already got their medical and everything else.
Sure.
That's why I asked that question.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, we're not paying for any of those benefits. In this position, we're not paying for
Right,
any
I
of the
know
benefits.
that.
Just for clarity, he's not retiring. He hasn't been here long enough.
Right, he's not retiring from the county.
From the county.
Oh, he's not retiring from the
No.
county.
He's leaving for personal reasons.
But
Okay.
I want the board to understand, that we've got an individual that's retiring, okay? It created this vacancy. Doesn't mean he's gonna automatically walk into this position. I mean, it's possible he will because he's a qualified individual. If this individual didn't submit his termination or his resignation to emergency management, we probably wouldn't be standing here until he was ready to leave. We needed this essential function of this job to be completed. The fact of the matter is, the job that he was doing took away from the tasks that emergency management needed to get done. So,
And I understand that. I
Yeah.
think what I was trying to get to was this rate set with somebody possibly in mind, and it appears that it may have been. So,
well, he's not retiring from to answer your question, he's not retiring.
right,
from the
he's not
county.
retiring, but he's leaving. Probably, and I don't want to get
Yeah.
into his business, but
Sure.
the part-time thing, whatever the situation is, would work better for him. But it does sound like the wage was set based on an individual rather than looking at what this job is and what you would pay elsewhere.
The wage was set based on the essential function of the job that the position was being done. I didn't look at the individual, honestly, I
Okay.
did not. That's a fair question, though, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of my questions were answered from the previous speakers. A couple of them, though. You're asking for a budget adjustments from July to December, and I'm guessing that's because into the budget year, and then you're going to want to incorporate this position continually.
Yes, sir.
just
That's
for the
correct.
budget. One thing I want to let you know, it's not germane to your office or anybody else. The board, or rather myself, any positions that have been coming in front of us that have, at least this last week, we've approved to finance on a few conditions. A few conditions that HR department goes through the classification and signs off on it, and goes through the pay and signs off on it because of the study that we had. So I have no problem approving this to finance, but prior to it getting approved on the finance, HR has to sign off that yes, this classification is correct, and yes, these wages are within their rules of HR of the study that we've had.
Absolutely. And HR, I've been contacting HR throughout the process to make sure we're going the right way as far as part-time, some things like that.
Captain,
I have no problem with looking at
All your
the-
business, we're just here to
Yes,
do
sir.
the fiduciary part, and one of those caveats we're throwing in is that because we spent the money on the study,
Sure.
that it's all falling in line of classification and pay rate. So,
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Understood.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. I want to talk about one of the questions that Commissioner Kleinfeld had. And coming from the fire service, I have a little bit of a different view on this. Not different, but,
More educated.
well, on the fire side.
Yes, sir.
I agree 100% that this position is not only needed, but that it's needed to be filled by someone that has some qualifications that really understands the fire service. And the dispatching, you're correct, is completely different, and I don't think that was even realized at first when we put this into play with the dispatch. We've talked a million times about having the right people in the right jobs and paying the right money. And I will say that this is not a position for my babysitter. And I say that because my babysitter one of them, my kid's babysitter, is a dispatcher. And she came from, school to being a dispatcher. And I think that it's ridiculous there that we pay so little that that's who we're getting, right? We can't even get people that are like on the next step of becoming an officer. That's who we're paying. And this is a position as important as being a dispatcher is, having the person training the dispatchers in the proper way is far exceeds, the importance, I think. So that being said, this is certainly, I believe, after 25 years in it, an essential position. And secondly, this money you said you've been paying, how much of a range was in the position that this person was at before? Because I know Veronica's talking about we're taking basically the high range, if we had a range, and moving that as your half range. And I think that was probably the question that she was asking about that.
Speak about range, I think he was at the top end of the range, that would be an accurate statement.
And I
of the
think
pay
that's
range.
where, and I think that's one of the questions that she was trying to get at. That being said, this is 911 money that was being spent for this job, that you're basically saying, I was spending it here, I'm gonna spend it here. It's the same job, but
It is.
there was, got it.
And it's gonna, but the original question about how much money that comes from E911 and how much is gonna be left over, it's half the amount of money that we've been spending over the last 3 years for this
Okay.
position.
So you've been
'Cause it's a
fine,
we made it from a full-time to a part-time position.
right, so you've been funding him full-time then, in that, okay.
Not completely full-time, but I don't know what percentage it would be, but
Well, close to
to eight.
50%. Is what it was.
Well, if it's close to 50, then it should be the same amount, right?
Well, I think because of the benefits and going, that are in that, and then what it is for, moving down to part-time for only 20 hours and paying less.
Okay, well, you understand my confusion
do.
on this one right now.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay. So, anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause more confusion, but
No, that's
I just wanted, I mean, in essence, we're taking this money and moving it here and taking this person and moving it here, like Commissioner Drollet said, and I agree that that position is not a baseline starting type of position that requires, you know, a college degree and how to, you know, fill out an application. So, anyway, thank you.
If I may, I'm all for finance taking a look at it, and if they won't sign off on the wage, take a look at it, and then use the class compensation study, if that's what we're talking about, to set the wage at whatever the board's comfortable with.
And Commissioner Carabelli is just, at our last meeting, at the meetings when we denied a lot of the, you know, all the positions originally, we just wanted to say, let's get this study.
Sure.
Let's make sure that this position doesn't change to this position or isn't recommended to, and the wage was 50,000, but they're recommending it's 80,000, right? I mean, something like that where
Sure.
we're approving something that might possibly be changed in, you know, a matter of years. So
I
that's,
understand.
and I don't think a lot of the positions have that, that study had an impact on these positions, probably not at all on this position. And do you have a similar position that does, just police side dispatch, or is that person a whole different kind of encompassing everything?
It encompasses everything, and a lot of our training that we do is also done by the state. So, no, we don't have a specific, what we have right now is what we've had to have done, is we'd have to reassign one of my dispatch supervisors, special assign her, and dedicate her to training our LE side and our FD side.
Got it.
So, to get into the
As-
weeds of it,
As a fireman, I don't agree. Yeah, I think it's time to
Yeah.
keep the fire department training the FFD side of
Right.
it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that anytime we hire somebody back who had been working for the county, and not enough time is it emphasized that they receive no additional benefits once they retire from the county, no matter what it is. I know, I went through it, but I'm happy with it. But, you know, sometimes people ask questions, well, will they get this, will they get that? And they get nothing more except the base pay. Thank you.
Just clarification, very quickly on something. The $43, which I think I came up with 39 for the pay minus the other stuff. Is that based on the individual's salary, or is that based on the individual's package with the cost of the benefits included?
the sheriff's office made quarterly payments. This is how I came up with the $68,000 figure. We made $15,168 quarterly payments to emergency management, would put us at the $68,000 range. I split that in half because it was part-time. I sent that to finance and to HR. Finance set the information that's in front of you as far as what has to be paid for FICA, Medicare, unemployment. This individual was not a county employee. I mean, let me take that back. He was a county employee and he worked for emergency management. So I think he got hired in 13.
Okay,
benefit is
and
no
maybe
legacy
Steve can
cost.
answer this, because
Probably
I don't know
could.
where the 68 is coming from. We've got 19, we've got 21, am I looking?
Yeah, can I?
Yeah,
So the hourly rate of $19.75 or $76 an hour is the maximum of the salary range that the person is in today. So it's $78,000 or $78,000
minus the benefits.
minus the benefits.
Okay.
So that $19.75
So we're
is
going with the maximum of the position that he's in today.
that hourly rate's based on the maximum of the position he's in today. And
Okay.
then all the FICA and the unemployment and the workers' comp is all added on, which it would be, I mean, when we calculate the cost
Yes,
of
it
the
would be.
position.
I just didn't know if the
Right.
cost of the benefits package was rolled into the hourly amount.
No.
All right, I'm having a hard time with it, but thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Kleinfeld voting no. Item, no, number 7C, thank you, Commissioner Romano. A budget amendment for the Friend of the Court, the fund position, half of a sheriff's deputy. We have Thomas Blom, the director of the Friend of the Court.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thomas Blum. I am the Director of the Friend of the Court. This is a budget amendment to allow us to fund for 3 months, the rest of the year, our budget year up until October 1st, a sheriff's deputy that's going to be assigned half-time to the Friend of the Court and half-time to the Prosecutor's Office Federal Division, which is the division that handles all paternity cases. We are willing to share this with the deputy. We currently have a full-time deputy, but the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, I believe they're present as well. They do not, and I believe this position is very much needed. I'm here to answer questions if you have any.
What is the anticipated half that the Friend of the Court will have this deputy available?
Well, certainly Monday, because Monday morning is motion day for Friend of the Court. Our deputy is very busy. As you know, we came from one floor where he could look out and observe the whole lobby to 7 different floors and 7 different lobbies. So this individual would be assigned to the Friend of the Court on Monday, and Wednesday is what we worked out so far because that's our second busiest day, and then a half a day somewhere in between on an as-needed basis.
Has there been any discussion on the second position, assisting and handling the finances and moving of money?
No, but that's certainly something we can consider.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would want to talk to Lieutenant Gornicki, who is the head of the campus security and sheriff's department, to see if that fits in with his assignments. I don't want to make any promises if they have union issues that I may not be aware of, but I can promise you that I'll talk to him about it.
Okay. Are there any other speakers on this item? Well, let me get to my list. 1 second. Get to my list. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, this might be for you. I know Steve was around here someplace. Hey, Steve. Tom, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Steve, is this, and this may be for you too, Tom, both of you. You know, I'm looking at the personnel changes recommended by the executive for the budget, and it looks like Front of the Court was requesting a deputy, like a part-time deputy. Is this what this is?
This is it.
This is it
half.
exactly.
Half for Friend of the Court, half for the prosecutor's office.
Okay, and the numbers,
Mr. Miller will speak to that.
and I know we talked a little bit yesterday about that 6%
The
deal.
2,600
Yep,
in
yep.
addition to
It's
the 6%.
going to be the same thing I'm seeing.
You're
Got
going
it.
to see that throughout.
Across the board.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, just want to reiterate that any positions needs to be signed off from the HR department as far as the classification and the pay range, and a letter to be sent forth to the board prior to the finance meeting, which is next week, Wednesday. So we have to get that from HR, please.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair Smith.
Thanks. I just wanted to reiterate that this position, I think a lot of these other positions, almost all of the positions are ones that were initially brought to us last year's budget, and we denied them, I'd say mostly, at least personally, based on the fact that we had that study coming, and we felt it was kind of foolish to spend that much money for a study and then put in these positions beforehand. So this is a position that was requested last year in the budget and had to wait basically to be really heard and vetted at this time because the executive moved this forward, I believe, for you guys.
Yes, and for the record, Derek Miller with the prosecutor's office, and staying to my right is Jennifer Meach, who's our office manager. Just to give you the board some factual background in regards to this position and why it's so necessary. Our federal division, which handles our paternity matters, to get these folks into the door, we need to have our investigators go into areas, sometimes dangerous areas, serve these folks paternity notices, to get them into our door, because there's usually most of the time a woman out there who's receiving state assistance for children out of wedlock, and she's raising children as a single mother. And so now We get it's usually the father through the door. Both parties are there. Sometimes the father is coming with his new girlfriend. The mother is there with her new boyfriend. All parties are there. People do not want to pay child support. It's a contentious issue. And just since October, we've had over 30 emergency calls requesting emergency assistance from law enforcement to come and take care, because it's creating an unreasonable risk for our staff who are trying to do their jobs, and we're having brawls on the third floor of the prosecutor's office, at risk of those types of dangers. So somebody in uniform is an essential asset to us, and in these types of paternity positions in our federal division, where the state's covering 2/3 of the cost, I think it's a tremendous benefit, an asset to at the cost that we're getting, and we're paying a deputy only 1/3 of his salary, as well as a clerical staff. And the reason the clerical staff is necessary, part-time clerical staff, is because unfortunately children out of wedlock in these untraditional family circumstances is not a diminishing thing in our society. Unfortunately, it's becoming more prominent, and we're having to go out more and deal with these problems. So I feel like these two positions are certainly necessary.
Thanks.
You're referencing the position that we have on E, the next item?
D is,
Okay.
That's correct.
But I think you were talking about a
Yes,
clerical
yes.
position.
The clerical position is also in the federal division with the handling paternity cases.
Okay.
and
Sorry
just to
to jump
finish
ahead.
up, no, that's fine, thanks, Derek, because I did want to remind everybody that we did hear about these positions, but it was almost a year ago, right? So for you to explain the reason behind them, I mean, it's almost like we're kind of starting over new again here, but knowing that they did come to us last year, so I appreciate you putting that out there. This division moved, correct? During the big move, that was not always on the third floors.
Yes, it used to be in the old administration building, I believe. And so now we're all together.
If I can add, they were with us for a long time on the 6th floor after the fire. So they had the use of our lobby and a deputy, which helped them, but when they separated, they started to have a lot of problems.
And that's what I was getting at. The situation has changed, where you've had protection, so to speak, before, but now you're kind of left naked on the third floor, it sounds like. I mean, not you, of
I don't think that's what
course.
it sounds like. But sure, yes. Yeah. Well, in addition to the 30 times we've had to call for emergency deputy to come for emergency circumstances, in addition to that, 12 other times we've had to have one of our investigators go into the lobby and try to resolve issues. It's just not a good situation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the chair asked most of my questions, just for clarification. Currently, before this, if this position weren't filled or whatever, what you're currently doing is having the sheriff send somebody over, essentially. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how long has that been the case?
Since we brought, I believe since the move.
Okay.
Since we've had all of our people in one building on the third floor for paternity.
So
After that, we were shared our home with Tom Bloom's department. So there was a deputy present there.
Okay.
We were also at North Rose. There was a blue coat there at the time, to man the doors.
Okay.
But because we're not a entry where we are located, we cannot have a blue coat there.
So this is sort of a situation substantially necessitated by the move.
May I answer that, Mike? Sure. In part, Commissioner, because we have a full-time deputy, and that deputy did monitor one floor when all of us were there. It was a lot of work, but he or she did it. With the move, now our deputy has to monitor 7 floors, 7 different lobbies, as I indicated before, and he has come back and forth, but when he's over there helping the federal division, he's out in our office helping us. So it's just not sustainable. And besides the fact that it's a risk to our employees, it's certainly a risk, and it's not fair to the litigants to come into that lobby and expect to be able to do business and be safe.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other speakers? Is there a motion to forward 7B, or D? We'll just do the prosecutor's office first. Moved by, who moved that? Moved by Majek, support by Lucido. Please vote on your iPads. Did we do C? Okay, all right. We're gonna just backtrack to item C, would be
Thank
the
you,
other
Commissioners.
half of that position for the friend of the court. Moved by Duje, supported by Leonetti. Please vote on your iPads. Both items unanimously passed. Item 7E. Derek, did you want to address this one again? I know that you touched on it. Budget amendment for the prosecutor's office, one part-time typist clerk.
I'll let you address this.
Well, as Derek said, you know, we've had an increase of our caseload, so the requirement is to have additional staff. And we're just requesting a part-time clerical non-benefit position to assist with that.
Is this for friend of the court services?
No, this is a prosecutor attorney with federal division that deals with, you know, paternity cases.
Okay. So friend of the court type issues.
Similar.
Okay.
Yeah, because that goes to the next step is them.
Okay.
It starts, you know, with our office.
Any discussion on this item? Commissioner Carabelli?
Yes, Madam Chair, again, just to be a broken record, before finance, all these positions, to have a letter from the HR stating the classification and the wages are in accordance with the study that they have prior to us ratifying.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You stated something to the effect that there's required ratio or required staffing levels or something to that effect. Did I interpret that correctly?
No, not required. We've had an increase in our caseload.
Oh.
And as Derek had said, you know, over time, you know, this has been an increasing issue or area. So we do need staffing to help with the increase of the caseload.
Is there like any material that shows the caseload increasing over time?
There is, I can get it.
Okay. I take your word for it, but
Yeah.
it's nice to have that so we
Yeah.
can see the caseload increasing, and then
Sure.
it's easier to understand where those needs are. So hopefully in the future we can consider that. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair Smith?
Thank you. Commissioner Carabelli, and this is to all of you, I think that we're asking everybody to come with a letter from HR and different things. I'm thinking that in the next day, we're gonna maybe try to craft our own letter so that they know what we're requesting of them. So I'm gonna have Patty hopefully get with you tomorrow, and maybe we can come up with something that requests the information, you know, all in a standard form, so that we're getting the same information from all the people coming for these positions. So if you just hold off on that tomorrow, we'll
Sure.
see if we can come up with something that satisfies everybody as to what information we are requesting.
Okay,
All right? To make it a little easier.
good.
Are there any other speakers on, I don't have any on my list. Is there a motion to forward this to finance? Moved by Duje, supported by Carabelli. Please vote on your iPad. The item unanimously passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7F is a budget amendment for the Child Care Fund to fund one part-time juvenile counselor position. We have Dave Joseph, the program director.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Dave Joseph, Juvenile Court Program Director. I'm filling in today for my boss, Nicole Faulds. She was pulled away on fairly urgent matter, so I can tell you it's urgent. They never let me up here to speak, so it's very serious. As Commissioner Smith indicated, this was a budgeted issue that was brought to the board last year as part of our budget. The presentation at that time was the request for the counselor position after dramatically reducing our out-of-home placements. So if you recall, we had a number of situations where the average monthly out-of-home placement was hovering somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 cases. We've brought that down to an average of about 15 to 18 out-of-home county placements. We've been able to successfully do that by increasing our community-based treatment, the expansion of a number of our programs where we have more intensive relationships with children in the community. So we partner therapists with probation officers. We try to address the reason that the child was brought to the court, the original petition issues, and we find that when we address those, we eliminate the need for more costly and expensive out-of-home placement. So it's really a winner in terms of financially, but also we know that the rate of incarceration as an adult exponentially goes up when we have kids in the Juvenile Justice Center as minors. So trying to break that cycle by way of more intensive relationship with the children in the community has been our goal, and we've been very successful over the last several years retooling a number of our programs. They really are reliant on therapy, and this request is to continue that trend to keep kids in the community safely.
So this position is for children who are removed from their homes and placed where?
So when a petition comes forward and the juvenile is charged with whatever the offense is, they're placed typically on standard probation. And if we see violations or an escalation in problems, the relationship gets more and more intense until we get to the point where the individual is no longer safe for the community, and then we will recommend to the referee or the jurist that the child be removed and placed in residential care. We've seen a dramatic downturn in the request for out-of-home placements because of the relationships that we have with community-based programming, and that is more counseling and more intensive community-based work. So this is a preventative measure. What we were able to show, I think fairly well, was the dollars associated with the cost with removing a child versus community-based or work that's done with the probation officer and the juvenile court counselor. This is a request for an additional counselor position to assist in the community-based side. So this happens before we remove or request removal from the community.
Okay. So these kids would still be in their home, but they need additional counseling, or you need additional counselors to help them avoid being removed from
Correct.
the home? Okay. Commissioner Carabelli, thank you for that information. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, like we've said, for every position, we're going to be either forwarding out something that needs to be signed by HR with clarification as how the classification and wages go. Sounds like we may be putting something together to send out to everybody, so we're kind of uniform. This question, and I don't know if you can answer this, for Madam Chair. A year or two ago, we had discussions at the JGC as far as occupants, as far as it being down, costs and all that, and I have not heard anything back as far as the status of where we're at overall big picture. So before we get into the budget season coming up, it'd be nice to get an idea of where, when we were in a serious panic mode over there to where we are today. I don't know, and I don't know, maybe you do know.
Don't, but maybe we can have Ms. Westphal come over and give us an update on that. This particular program, though, is not for kids in the youth home. This is to avoid getting them in the youth home, for services to avoid youth home, correct?
Yeah, so we work hand in glove, obviously, with the JJC. We're in different command structures. We, of course, report to the chief judge and they, the executive's office. We work very closely because we're dealing with the same kids. On the community-based side, on the probation side, we see it really, we do a very introspective look at a case that we lose to a residential. So if we lose a kid, we always take a look at what we could have done differently to keep that child in the community. And we measure it twofold. Is the child a danger to themselves or a danger to the community? If we have a no to both of those, we continue to try to work to find out why the child is not going to school, continues to use drugs, things like that. We, of course, have had an impact because of the work that we've done on the JJC beds, as Commissioner Carabelli is talking about. We have seen a dramatic reduction in the need for out-of-home placement in part because we've saved money on the community-based side. So if we can address what brought the child to the attention of the court without removing them from their school and their community, we save a lot of money. Now, Ms. Westfall might find less need for staff to.
Well, maybe
but-
this is a great thing that's happening because this program is really working. We don't need to have them go to the next step and be incarcerated. So this is something that I'd like to hear more about. Maybe more money needs to be shifted from there to there to have more counselors. So I think we should get a bigger picture. You understand what I'm trying to say?
We'll
To
do
see
that. We'll
where
have
we're
her
at.
come in and do a ask her to come in and do a presentation.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Sure.
In the inclusion of that presentation, I don't think they'll let me come in, but we're very proud of the work that we do on the juvenile court side of things. And we know that when we work harder, and we've done some very innovative things, we've worked very collaboratively with the unions, and we do a lot of programming after hours. We don't do it with any overtime costs. We have our people that are working for comp time. We know that kids that are in school, leaving school to come in for a programming creates a problem with absence and attendance. So we have staff on several nights of the week working and doing group therapy and some really outstanding things. Our goal is to diminish the need for out-of-home placement. We know that any measure of any community is how many kids do you incarcerate, and we're very proud of that number ticking down because of the work that we're doing, and there is significant cost savings. When we send one of these kids out of the county, the average per diem is over $200 per day. We currently utilize the JJC every opportunity we can. They are currently only able to service 10 boys out of home. So anything over 10 right now requires us to look to a private agency. And those per diems, as I say, if you have a mental illness associated with that, or a substantial drug problem, or a special problem involving sexually reactive youth or a sex offender, as was previously known, that per diem can go to $300 a day. So through very careful assessment and a look at making sure we have safety, we are able to service a lot of these cases that were formally sent down to these $300 a day placements in the community at a dramatically reduced cost. So any conversation involving the exchange between what we save and what we do as a community, if the juvenile court could be invited in for that presentation, it would be great.
Thank you. I don't have any other speakers on the list. Am I missing anybody? Is there a motion to receive and file? Moved by Commissioner Kraft, supported by Commissioner Romano. Please vote on your iPads. Forward to finance, I'm sorry. Do you have the vote in on that? The item unanimously passed. Thank you for coming in and
Thank you.
presenting.
It's good to see you.
Item number G is a budget amendment, the Community Corrections Fund position, one pretrial arraignment coordinator. We have Taylor Hartz from the pretrial specialist. Barb Caskey was unavailable. She had reached out a couple of times to kind of go over this and was disappointed that she couldn't be here. She's indicated that if you have any questions after this presentation, she's happy to answer them, but she's confident that Taylor will be able to answer everything that we need to know. Taylor?
Again, I'm Taylor Hartz. I'm the pretrial manager. Again, this position was brought before you guys a year ago. Pretrial services assists in effectively managing the jail population by gauging who is appropriate to be supervised in the community and who should remain incarcerated based on screening for risk and needs level, verification of information provided, investigation of past criminal history, and their level of compliance. Community Corrections has increased pretrial supervision participation 55% since 2016 to the current year. We currently have 800 individuals being supervised in the community while awaiting sentencing. Referrals for screenings and bond recommendations continue to increase dramatically, 33% from 2016. These recommendations allow judges in both district and circuit court to make informed bail decisions and utilize community corrections, community supervision for the duration of bond. We have reached capacity for pretrial services with staff currently in the office and are requesting an additional pretrial specialist to accommodate the level of screening and supervision services that are being requested by both district and circuit courts in Macomb County. If there's any other additional questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
So just to summarize, when a person is charged with the crime, the court calls you in and then you evaluate the person for bond conditions or appropriateness and alternatives to incarceration?
Correct. We go in and try to see them pre-arraignment, and if we don't get them at that point, then the judge will refer them to us, and then we do recommendations per that request.
And you provide those services to all the local district courts and to our circuit court, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes, she said that. Commissioner Carabelli?
Again, Madam Chair, we'll be sending out something from the Board of Commissioners' office as far as clarification of concurrence with HR on classification and pay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions on this item? Is there a motion to forward it to Finance? Moved by Carabelli, supported by Sauger. Please vote on your iPads. Taylor, you can report it unanimously passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8, new business. Is there any new business for the committee? Seeing none, we'll close it. Item number 9, public participation. There are no members of the public present. We'll close public participation. And is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Commissioner Drollet, supported by Commissioner Kraft. Please vote on your iPads. I don't know, maybe you heard us.